half a year ago, BT Sport threw me on the back of a bike driven by MotoGP commentator and racer Michael Laverty. After experiencing the rush of a track firsthand, I found myself being drawn closer and closer to all things, well, MotoGP. However, I had one small issue. I wasn't particularly well versed in the sport of motor racing, and with the last race of the season drawing in, well, I didn't pick a very convenient time to develop my newfound interest. The other issue was that, well, being new to the world of motorcycling and looking outwards towards MotoGP, well, it kind of felt a little bit like this. And if you're anything like me, you'll know the feeling of flipping over to BT Sports, tuning into MotoGP and wondering, well, what exactly is going on? Why is the guy in first place not actually in first place? What are we supposed to be deciding here? And, well, is it really necessary to be that buff in order to win MotoGP? But ultimately I was left with the question, can a newbie like me make sense of this crazy new world? And sure, I could have spent the weekend deep diving on Wikipedia like the big nerd I am, but then I thought, why not do it in person? Now, the next issue that I faced in my education was that the next MotoGP race was in Valencia, and well, I was in the north of England. The only flights going to Valencia were for Gatwick Airport, and I had 0 annual leave left this time of year. So the only solution was to travel at night time, clock on in the day, and question whether this trip was fulfilling the criteria of a midlife crisis. Oh, good God. Oh dear. Oh dear. I think I need to run a brush through my So last night I made it to London. I made it to Gatwick Airport. I should have arrived at my hotel at 11 PM. I ended up arriving at 1 because apparently there was a shuttle bus from the bus to the hotel. So I spent like an hour trying to find this shuttle bus. Anyway, it turns out it wasn't running because all the roadworks are everywhere and there are no shuttle buses and buses to my hotel. So at 1 in the morning I ended up paying for a hyperinflated taxi for a 4-minute drive and been robbed 30 quid. Cheers, London. But we're here. I'm currently in my hotel, so I am working remotely today. And then as soon as it hits 5 PM, I'm gonna go somehow find a cheaper way to get back to the airport. 4 minutes down the road, which apparently is a 45-minute walk due to not being able to walk. But it's fine. Because we're going to MotoGP and you know, so I'll suck it up. I'll suck it up, I won't complain, and I'm gonna go work. Run a brush through my hair first. So after work, I made the creepy walk back to the airport, where I met up with the team from BT Sports, and we all started to make our way to Valencia together. finally made it to my hotel around midnight, and needless to say, although I was extremely excited about MotoGP in the morning, I was also very tired. Look where we are. Oh. Why is there a telephone in the bathroom?
I'm so sleep deprived. I'm so sleep deprived.
Okay guys, so we have finally arrived. We're at MotoGP. We are in Valencia after 5 hours on a train down to Gatwick and also, 2 hours flying on a plane. I'm here and this thing is absolutely incredible. I cannot get over just how astronomically huge this thing. It is like a motorcycle playground. There's just so much going on. One of the employees likened it to a traveling bike circus, and honestly I think that that's the best way to describe it, because it's absolutely huge, and this is just one small section of it. Behind me we have the races going on right now. We just had warm-up laps, and just all around the paddock there's just various different companies and brands and all the different riders with their different trailers. We have the main area, which is just full of music and alcohol and dancing, and it's absolutely incredible. This is the kind of thing that you don't usually see on the TV, and that's the atmosphere that is going behind, because it's genuinely like a festival. It's just so incredible, and I'm just so excited to be here. And at the same time, I'm still none the wiser about what is going on. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to head over to the media centre, and I'm going to go find a few people to chat with, and effectively we're going to go learn a bit more about what MotoGP is, what it entails, and how did it become this huge event in just a few generations, because this is absolutely astronomical. So let's jump over, let's go find out.
MotoGP originally started in 1949 as the Motorcycle Grand Prix Championships. It's a series of bike races that take place from March until November across 18 races, 14 countries and 4 continents. The competition features some of the most skilled riders, cutting-edge technology and mind-blowing prototypes. Over the years, the races underwent a series of continuous changes driven by the development of technology in the biking world. The reason MotoGP has become so prevalent, unlike other forms of racing, is that MotoGP was always based on the idea of prototype development, rather than production-based motorcycles. So you're probably wondering what that means. Well, at least I know I did when I first discovered that random fact. And it basically means that the makers of the motorcycles on the track are built by the same brand names racing them. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that these bikes are available to buy. These bikes aren't road stock, unlike other motorcycle races. The prototypes are created specifically for MotoGP, and they have more than 240 horsepower. They weigh less than 155 kilos, and sometimes they can cost as much as $2 million a bike. On top of that, the bikes can be, at the worst of times, unstable, and as such it's required trackside engineers. Because of the ongoing arms race, it means that the development of these super machines is not only incredibly entertaining for viewers, but it ultimately allows for a lot of new technology being created in the world to trickle down to consumer bikes. 2 examples of this is electronic rider aids and also the wide use of carbon fibre. I think it's fair to say that MotoGP is effectively the Olympics meets Fashion Week, but for bikers. Of course, this was just based off my own research, and I was keen to find out how others felt about the development of MotoGP. So off I went to track down petrolhead Laverty once more to gain some further insight into why he thinks MotoGP became the crazy spectacle that it is today.
So this is my first time at MotoGP, and obviously I've come from a background where 2 years ago I didn't own a license, I didn't know anything about motorcycles. So for me this is an absolutely new experience. You know, I've never been really in, to a motorcycle kind of racing kind of circuit, whatnot. And it's huge, it's absolutely huge. Looking around it, everything is just like so meticulously organized. And you think a few generations ago, MotoGP didn't really exist. What do you think it is that's taken it from where it was to just this absolutely explosive sport?
Well, yeah, numerous things. Obviously, the manufacturers getting behind it. For a period in the 90s, we had a lot of money investment from cigarette companies, and the professionalism, when there was money involved, then you start to get promoters. So Dorna took over the MotoGP promotion. I can't remember what year it was, but then you had the IRTA, the International Race Teams Organisation, who organise all the teams, and it's such a professional environment, and it's just continued to grow. So yeah, you look back at the 80s, and the safety wasn't the same, the tracks weren't the same, it wasn't nearly as professional as it is now. It's a fantastic spectacle now, but it's a massive business, and as you mentioned, it's growing all the time. So I think we've never had a healthier MotoGP championship than we have now. We've had stars in the past and great racing, but just the whole circus, it is, like you mentioned, it's one big travelling circus with a lot of class and a lot of fantastic motorbikes and trucks and all the show. It's a bit special.
So I know that there's lots of different kinds of motorbike races going on all the time, but it's very clear that MotoGP is attracting a huge crowd. What do you think it is specifically about MotoGP that just brings so many people together?
It's an interesting question, because you look back in the 90s, everyone was gravitating towards World Superbike, so MotoGP has established itself as the pinnacle, so a bit like Formula 1. So whenever you follow car racing, Formula 1's a bit more of a household sport than motorcycling. As a two-wheel sport, it's a bit more of a niche sort of audience, but especially in Spain here, it's huge. It's probably second out only to football, so it is really a normal thing for the family to go to events, and so you always got a big crowd in Jerez and most of the Spanish rounds.
What do you think it's going to look like in maybe 3-4 generations time?
Yeah, really hard to know, because I was always a fan of the sport, and watching back in the early 90s when it was 500cc two-strokes, and to how it is now with four-stroke, the latest generation bikes putting out 300 horsepower with all these aerodynamic appendages on the machine. So it transitions all the time, but what the sport's done in recent years, they made a spec tyre, spec electronics, so they've tried to create parity, give everyone a fighting chance. So at the moment there's 24 MotoGP bikes in the grid, and any one of them could win, whereas back in the 90s that wasn't the case. You only had maybe 4 or 5 bikes that could win. So making an even playing field, it's made the races more spectacular. The gaps between the top 10 are closer than ever. But where it goes over the next few generations is hard to tell. So we've got MotoE. It joined the championship 3 years ago. It's going to be a world championship next year. It's been a World Cup until this time. As we evolve into more sustainable and looking to become a more green sport, the battery power is one avenue, but they're looking at synthetic fuels. So things in the sport will change. I know probably our biggest impact on our carbon footprint is probably the transport, which you can't fix with airplanes and trucks. At the moment, there isn't fixes out there, but actually the action on track, I don't know if it'll ever go away from the combustion engine. The move to MotoE is a good thing, but I don't know if it attracts the same. Definitely when you're trackside, you don't feel the noise. It loses a bit of the passion. So I don't see the sport evolving down that direction. I could be wrong, but I don't see it going electric. I think it'll always stay an internal combustion engine, which for me as a purist, I'd rather see happen. But yeah, to say the next 2-3 decades where it's going to go is a difficult one to tell.
Like many motorsports, MotoGP had its roots funded by tobacco giants. The sport had everything it could possibly want: money, fame, heroism, and glorious comb-overs. However, as health attitudes evolved, smoking bans began to roll in, and the financial crisis swept over the West. By 2006, many primary teams saw their checkbooks close almost overnight. Despite the financial setbacks in the early 2000s, MotoGP saw a slow but steady increase in popularity year on year as new champions came to light. So MotoGP isn't just one singular race, it actually has 3 distinct classes. We have the Premier, we have Moto2 and Moto3. And the teams can consist of up to 2 riders, although it has been known on the odd rare occasion that some large teams have had 3 riders. The riders must qualify for each race by running a timed lap and finishing within a % of the fastest time. So obviously not everyone will make the cut, and this is just to enter the race. Now each track is completely different, and so it requires subtle changes to the bike. So this practice session is critical to maximising a rider's potential. So on the actual race day itself, the races can last between 40 to 45 minutes depending on the circuit. And because MotoGP is held at a different circuit every single race, it means that the amount of laps will also vary on the track. To get a deeper understanding of the track itself, the MotoGP staff decided to let me get a little bit closer to the action, and we jumped in one of the track cars to take a tour around in between laps. Needless to say, it was awesome. In part 2 of my first time at MotoGP, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into how the scoring system works, as well as how points are awarded to riders. In the meantime, while you wait on my slow editing skills, why not tune into BT Sports, where you can watch every round of the MotoGP circus and much more. Until next episode, my name's Saffy Sprocket, signing off.